Welcome to my parlor. Welcome, traveler, to the Hidden Corner Finds. I am Joanne, and this is my humble store. Pull up a chair, stay a while, make yourself at home. What? Oh, you want to know what I'm selling? Everything and anything. In short, I have a passion for. Why did it just bleep me? All I said was, I have a passion for picking, I said. Yeesh. You can't say anything on YouTube these days without this censorship. Anyways, as I was saying, I have a passion for picking. For me, there is nothing more satisfying than finding a unique and forgotten item and uniting it with someone who will really appreciate it for years to come. Whether it's a soapstone carving, an old book, or simply a mug to make you laugh, I try and find something for everyone. My goal is to make you a confident buyer. Older items often have a lifetime of stories to tell. I strive to describe the good as well as the bumps and bruises they've experienced along the way. It's important that the pictures reflect what you will receive. To that end, I always encourage questions and will do my best to respond as quick as possible. Appreciate you stopping by the store. If you can't find what you're looking for, please don't hesitate to contact me. I'm always looking for new ideas and will keep an eye out for your item in my travels.
That's it. I mean, what the happened to my action figure collection?
Whoops, gotta go. Bye.
Hello，你好，Welcome back，欢迎回来to Wisdom Wednesday with Johnny Tiger on March 27th, 2024. Today we are going to talk about something a little bit more serious and heavy on the heart. We're going to be talking about crimes and punishment and stuff like that because of a recent big news out of China. This has been referred to as the three evils of Handan City. And now, to give you guys a little bit of background, Handan is a city in northern China that is often being described as the Gotham City of China. Now, those of you who don't know your comic book, you might not remember off the top of your head what's Gotham City. Gotham City is a city that Batman lives in and works at. Okay, so with all the evildoers like Joker and Scarecrow and Killer Croc and a Riddler and Two Face. That Gotham City. So this Handan City is called the Gotham of China. You can imagine how bad things get over there, right? So this recent news, uh, horrific news, the three evils of Handan City, uh, talk about three evildoers that are now waiting for sentencing. Uh, and to a lot of people's horror, the three evils of Handan City they were not like big criminal gangsters and the mafia head of mafia or someone who robbed 10,000 banks or stuff like that. Nothing like that. The three evils of Handan City turned out to be three children, three teenagers. Well, to say that they're teenagers is even a bit of a stretch. They're like a little that they just started their puberty. All three of them are 13 years old. Okay? 13 years old, all three of them. So why are three 13-year-old boys being dubbed the three evils of Handan City? What can they have done that is so bad? Well, you can probably find a lot of this information. It's true news, true story. So if you're interested, you can find a lot of this on the net, and there are a lot of materials on YouTube, people talking about it. So I won't go into all the gory details, but let me give you the short version. so it's a little bit easier to stomach it. Because even for myself, when I talk about this, when I think about it, it it makes me feel disgusted about human beings. Okay, so the three kids, 13-year-old kids, they've been bullying this one kid for quite a few years. School, they go to the same school, and there's this 13 kid of the same age, also 13 years old. They've been bullying him for quite a few years, and just recently, they lured him to somewhere that no one could hear him or see him. They whipped him with a rubber hose until he passed out, and then they buried him alive. Yeah, they buried this child alive. The 13-year-old boy didn't stand a chance, being whipped, being beaten, being abused, and then being buried alive by his schoolmate. Okay, and it's not because of anything. It's like because for fun. They thought it was a great fun. They thought this was something that's really cool to do. Now, when they were brought to the police station, all three of them acted like it's nothing because they acted like they believe they know the law. They said here in China, as long as you're under 14, you're not criminally liable because of the child protection law. Now, little did they know, back in 2020, okay, almost as if God or Buddha was watching for it, back in 2020, they actually changed the law. So now the legal limit is 12 years old. Now you have to be under 12 years old to be not criminally liable. So yeah, too bad for them. They miscalculated there. But they showed, the three of them, they showed no remorse when asked by reporters, like, did you guys have a fight with this kid and then you like killed him by accident, or like what was did you were you guys drunk or high or what? They said no. Apparently they've been digging the hole they were going to bury him in. They spent 2 or 3 days prior to killing this boy, digging the hole, preparing for this act. So this was totally premeditated murder. It wasn't done out of drunkenness. It wasn't done out of emotional temperament. It wasn't done out of anything but pure evil intention. So that's why those three boys, who still to this day show no remorse, are called the three evils of Handan City. Um, Sadly, even though they are criminally liable, because they're still under legal age, they're still children. So most likely, each one of them will only receive 10 years of sentencing, and they'll be back out in society. Who knows? Who knows if they'll change for the better, or who knows if they're going to kill someone else after they get out. Like 10 years is just not enough in this case. But anyway, why am I talking about something so grim and depressing? Because today I want to take you back throughout Chinese history, and let's look at how would Chinese people in the ancient day, in the good old days, how would they deal with kids like this, these evil kids? Like, look, some people want to believe that all kids are angels. Some people want to believe all kids are good. I'm telling you, no. Some kids, some children are children. Some children are angels, but some children are demons. Like, there's just no fixing that. You can see it from the way they abuse little animals when they were little. They pull legs out off of flies. They abuse butterflies and cockroaches, and then dogs and cats, and gradually they turn their attention to human. Some of them are born messed up in the head, and some of them come from messed up family who have people who are messed up in the head. Uh, so yeah, I totally do not believe that all children are angel. No, that's crap. Um, Before we turn back the hand of time and look at Chinese history and how they dealt with juvenile delinquent, uh, let's look at what is usually in the world, what is a common age of legal liability. In most white people country, in most of the established first world nations, the age of liability is around 14 years old. And from 14 years old and below, usually you are not going to be punished at all, if you do something naughty. If you are 14, between 14 and 18 or 14 and 20, depending on the country. So from 14 to whatever adult age, then you are liable you have to go to juvenile court or juvenile detention and stuff like that, right? So why it why is the age 14? Why the age 14? Like a lot of people think that it's because scientifically children start to mature at that age, but no, that is not the case. The reason why most of the established, especially white people, Caucasian countries, have the age set at 14 to be the youngest that you can be criminally liable or responsible is because this law was originally put in place by the Roman Catholic. And the year at around 14 years old is when you get your confirmation. And in the old days, they believe that only after your confirmation are you responsible because that's when you actually have a soul. And so they believe that before your confirmation, you don't have a soul. So whatever you do doesn't count anyway because you're not human, basically, before you're 14 years old. That's why. So this law of minimum age of 14 is not based on science, it is based on religion. Now, let's take our time machine and go way back in Chinese history. We'll start at the Zhou dynasty from over 3,000 years ago, where we have the very first recorded example of leniency and exemptions made by the law based on age group. Now, in the Zhou dynasty, again, over 3,000 years ago, they didn't actually have what we would call law as per se. Um, Rather than what is law today, which in Mandarin translate as fa means law, they had what they called li, which actually more loosely translates as common sense. So, in the book of Li Ji, the book of common record of common sense, it's stated that um, these groups of people are exempt from prosecution. One, children under the age of 8. Two, people over the age of 80. And three, people who are born mentally deficient. Okay, so they made it very clear, born mentally deficient. So you can't just act like a normal guy and suddenly go nuts when you're 25 years old and kill someone and claim mental deficiency. No, you you have to be able to prove that you were born this way. And back then, I imagine proving that would be very difficult unless the entire village would be able to testify. Oh yeah, he's always been a bit odd when he's always been a bit slow in the head, and that then you are above the law. And again, if you are beneath the age of 8, or if you are over the age of 80, so that's the earliest example of this kind of protection and exemption from the law. And then we fast forward about 500 to 700 years into the Qing Dynasty, the very famous King Shiwan, who built the Great Wall. Those of you that follow this channel, I have talked about that several times in the past. So the Qing Dynasty is often known as the most brutal and strict of all dynasties. But here is where it's kind of quirky because in Qing Dynasty they did not make exceptions by age. Instead, they went by height. So, going by the law of the Qing Dynasty, anyone who's under 5 foot tall would be above the prosecution of the law. So, if you kill someone, but if you are like 4 feet 9 inches tall, then congratulations, you don't have to be punished. Um, this is a very interesting little quirky kind of a way to distinct people. Yeah, yeah, I know. Some of you are like laughing your head off and saying, "Oh yeah, but aren't all Chinese people under 5 feet tall?" You know what? F you. I'm Chinese. I'm 5'9". Thank you very much. Just kidding. But anyway, no, no, I'm not kidding about me being 5'9". Really, really, I am 5'9". Okay, yeah. Um, but yeah. Um, so Qing Dynasty is not the only time when height became a thing, a distinction for punishment. When Genghis Khan was trying to take over the entire world, and the Mongols were massacring every city, every country they take over, they had similar rule. Whenever they took over a town or a kingdom, the Mongols would line up all the male members of the population. And the rule was if you are shorter than the wagon wheel, the wheel on the wagon, which is usually 4 foot, anywhere between 4 foot to 4 foot and a half tall. If you are shorter than the wagon wheel, then you are allowed to live. If you are taller than the wagon wheel, sorry, your head goes bye-bye. So any male population that is taller than the wagon wheel would get their head chopped off. Um, Fast forward from Qing Dynasty, we have next the Han Dynasty. Han Dynasty, which is about 2,300 years ago, approximately. The Han Dynasty, they further tightened up and reorganized the law, and they raised the legal age of liability to 10, oh, to 11 years old. So anyway, if you are beneath 11 years old, then you will not be punished for whatever crime you commit. But here is where they start to be a little bit more tight about the rule, because in the laws of the Han Dynasty, they wrote in that uh, children beneath the age of 11 are not criminally liable unless they killed someone with their own hands. Okay, they're very specific about that. If you kill someone with your own hand, then sorry, it doesn't matter how old you were, you are going to be punished just like an adult. You can be 3 years old, and if you kill someone with your own hand, you get punished like an adult. Let me quickly backtrack slightly because I forgot to mention this. So we were talking about the Qing Dynasty, where uh, if you were shorter than 5 foot, then you weren't criminally liable. Okay, there was a caveat in that. There was an addition to that law, which says that the moment you grow to be above 5 foot, then you will be punished for the crime that you were exempt from. So this means if you were, 12 years old or 13 years old and you killed somebody, well, you might be let free for now because you're under 5 feet tall. But later, when you're 18, now you're 6 foot two. Sorry, they come and get you and your head go bye bye because you have to pay for the crime that you committed when you were uh, still a child. So unless you were like naturally like a midget or small people or whatever, then lucky you. You get to commit all the crime and you don't have to pay for it. But in most cases, as soon as you surpass that 5 foot range, then you have to pay for your crime, even though the crime was committed long ago. From Han Dynasty, we fast forward a good, well, almost 500 years, and now we are in the Tang Dynasty, the most enlightened and fun dynasty in Chinese history, and one of the best time, the golden time of Chinese history. The Tang Dynasty, they further make a distinction in the law for child protection. Now there are three stages. Uh, Under the age of 7, you are totally not liable, so nothing you do would be held against you. Under the age of 10, you are still very much free to do whatever you want. You can be punished for very, very few of the crimes that you commit. And then there's another bracket between age of 10 to 15 where you're exempt from most crime. However, at this point, there is a distinction. From the age of 10 to 15, if you commit murder, then you get tried as an adult, which means these three little bastards from Handan City, if you send them back to Tang Dynasty, they're 13 years old, so they will get tried as adults. They wouldn't get this, oh, you only go to jail for 10 years because you're a child. Nonsense, right? So, a very famous and kind of sad and ironic example of this was in the case of the Zhang brothers. I think I might have mentioned this in passing in the past. The Zhang brothers were two brothers, obviously. Their last name is Zhang. And the older brother was 13, the younger brother was 11. They were born in the Tang Dynasty. Their father was murdered by someone. So, in retaliation, the Zhang brothers uh, what they plotted and schemed, and finally they caught the guy who murdered their father, and then they killed the guy to have revenge for to avenge their father. Now this sounds like a great story, right? Like this sounds like something that, oh, like just make you feel good. Yeah, they killed your father. You go and you go and kill them. Makes sense. But when the case of the Zhang brother was presented before the Tang Emperor, the Tang Emperor sentenced both of them to be executed, 11-year-old old and 13-year-old. There were many, many people who tried to appeal for them. Many of the ministers tried to talk to the emperor and say, hey, they were avenging their father. What they did is understandable. But the Tang Emperor said, what they did is understandable from a common sense point of view, but the law is the law. The law says if you're between 10 and 15, you get tried as an adult if you murder somebody. The two of them schemed and plotted to kill this guy, so they clearly murdered him. So even though I sympathize with their motive, they still broke the law and they have to be tried as adults. So, what the emperor did in the end was he executed them, and then after executing them, he uh, erected statues and plaques to commemorate them, to tell everybody how great they were for avenging their father. So he's like, I'm going to chop your head off because you broke the law, but don't worry, I'm still going to award you and commemorate you afterward. Yeah, yeah, law is very ironic sometimes. Which is, if we go back to the Zhou dynasty, the first one that I talked about, where I said Zhou dynasty didn't have law, they had common sense. They have the book of common sense, the book of Li Ji. And that was a very interesting part of Chinese history, where, you're not punished because the law says so. Your punishment is determined by what makes sense to people at the time. From the Tang Dynasty, now we fast forward to the Ming Dynasty. Now, Ming Dynasty was many things, but it was very chaotic. And during Ming Dynasty, there's no actual law that made a clear distinction between a punishment for children versus punishment for adults. It was left in the hand of the magistrate of each district and each township, each city, the magistrate had the discretion to decide if this child who broke the law should be punished accordingly or not. Um, One famous example was there was these two boys, both of them were 12, 13 years old, and they got into a fight over something, and one boy killed the other one, was brought before the magistrate. The magistrate had him put in prison while the magistrate tried to decide to what to do with him. And the magistrate had people brought this child his dinner, and on his rice bowl was a pair of chopsticks. They stuck the chopsticks into the rice, but the chopstick was mismatched. Like one chopstick was stuck in tip first, and the other chopstick was tip up, and so the butt end was stuck in the rice. So the two chopsticks, one was right side up, and the other one was upside down, and that was brought to the boy. Okay, and the boy, without a second thought, took the chopstick out of his rice and flipped them around so they are matching, they're facing the right way, and then he started eating. The magistrate, after hearing that from the jail guard, had the boy brought to him, and he asked the boy, "Why did you uh, adjust the chopstick?" And the boy said, "Well, because they were mismatched. They were put in there wrong, so I adjusted them, I corrected them." The magistrate immediately had the boy sentenced to death. His reason being, if you're old enough, you know that the chopstick stuck into the rice that way were wrong. How is it that you didn't know that killing your friend was wrong? And you obviously understand that what's right and what's wrong, and you still killed your friend. So in that case, you're going to be executed like an adult. So this was a very famous court trial in the Ming Dynasty. Now we come to the last dynasty, last imperial dynasty in Chinese history, the Qing dynasty. Now the Qing dynasty had a couple of interesting ones. The first case, notable case in Qing dynasty is a case of Dinqi the Third. I didn't make this up, okay? Really, he's called Dinqi Sanlang. So English we call it Dinqi the Third. Uh, so what happened during that case was Dinqi was 14 years old. He was child labor. So while he was working with the other children, they were carrying bags of sand and rock for a construction site. One of the other kids was constantly bullying him and throwing the heavy bags of rock at him. And finally, Dinky got pissed off and chucked a rock back at the other kid and killed the other kid when he hit him with the rock. Now, in most cases, Dinky would have been sentenced to death, but the magistrate decided that this case have some room for leniency, so they delayed the execution, and the magistrate sent the case up to the emperor himself. When the emperor saw the case and read more details about how this killing happened, the emperor decided to pardon Dinky himself because the emperor said that Dinky was provoked into throwing the rock at the other kid because the other kid was bullying him, and killing the other kid was not his intention. So it was more akin to accidental manslaughter rather than murder. So the emperor pardoned Dinky. So this was a very notable case during the Qing dynasty, which lead to a lot of the cases, a lot of these killings committed by children ended up being sent to the emperor for the emperor because everyone believed that, oh, all you have to do is send it to the emperor and the emperor would pardon the child. That's cool. Well, it didn't work out that way. Okay, uh, several years later, there was another killing that took place, and this time was committed by a 9-year-old child. This 9-year-old child, during an argument with his friend, when they were out uh, and playing in the mountains, and they got into an argument, this 9-year-old child strangled his friend and threw him off the cliff. Now, obviously, the parents did not want their 9-year-old child to be executed, so they appealed and appealed, and the case finally ended up with the emperor. And everybody thought that the emperor was going to pardon the child. But to everybody's surprise, the emperor, upon reviewing the file, he was enraged, he was angry, and he ordered for the boy to be executed on the spot. When people ask the emperor, how come you pardoned Dinky and you didn't pardon, like Dinky was 14, how come you pardoned Dinky and you didn't pardon this 9-year-old boy? The emperor said it's totally different. Dinky was bullied and then he defended himself and he retaliated. He didn't mean to kill the other boy. He just hit the other boy with a rock and the other boy died. That's completely different. This child, even though he looked like a child, he's 9 years old. He already can strangle someone to death. Okay, if he can already strangle someone to death at 9 years old and then throw that person off the cliff to hide the body, do we really want him to grow up? Good point. If you ask me, that's a really good point. I mean, if you are 9 years old and you already know to strangle your friend to death, like honestly, when I was 9 years, hell, when I was 13 years old, I didn't even know how to strangle someone to death, even if you asked me to. Uh, yeah. So if this kid at 9 years old knew enough to strangle his friend to death and just threw the body off the cliff, yeah, I don't know if that's someone we really want growing up and become an adult. Okay, I can give you a real example. Like this happened back in China in 2010. I can't remember the name of the case, but this was a really big news item back in 2010. There was this guy who was 14, who was 12. He was 12, and he stabbed one of his friend, and because he was 12, he wasn't taken to jail. He was pardoned. He wasn't liable, so they let him go. And no, I'm sure his parents beat the crap out of him. But when he was 14, he stabbed a 6-year-old little girl to death for no reason. Okay, he just decided it was a cool thing to do. He stabbed her to death. This time he was sentenced for uh, 6 years. He was sentenced for 6 years, but because of good behavior, he was let go when he was 19. He was allowed to get out of jail early at 19. As soon as he got out of jail, he murdered another 6-year-old girl. Okay, so like we look at this case, right? We think, okay, maybe they should have just got rid of him when he was 12, when he committed that first stabbing. Then the other two little girls wouldn't have to die, right? So the emperor sentencing this 9-year-old kid to death because he strangled his friend and threw the body off the cliff. I totally agree with that. So those are some of the most notable laws and rules, regulations, and cases I can pull from Chinese history to illustrate that, yeah, if you send these three kids back through time, they most likely would be. It doesn't matter when you send them, which dynasty, which time you send them, they would be tried as adults because what they did was so horrifically heinous. Uh, they are so lucky that they are born in modern time where people believe in this whole thing about, oh, they're only 13, they shouldn't be liable. If you ask me, that's just BS. um, Speaking of, to cap off today's video, I'm going to let you guys know also in the old days, um, throughout most of those dynasties, no matter Tang Dynasty, Han Dynasty, Qing Dynasty, most of those dynasties, there's a built-in fail-safe, when it comes to child liability. And this system, this fail-safe system, is called guilt by association, guilt by relation, which means when a child commit a crime bad enough, not just a child, when anyone commit a crime bad enough, not only this person have to be punished, anyone in his family could be punished. So in most cases, even if a child was lucky enough to be set free because they just happen to be, well, I don't know, shorter than 5 feet tall or under the age of 8, whatever. Even when these children were let go because of um, fitting in through the loophole, their parents would be executed. Their parents would be sentenced uh, because of guilt by relation, guilt by association. Now, when we hear about that nowadays, it sounds inhumane, right? It sounds horrible. But honestly, when we look around us, when we look on the news, when we look at these children that are out there stabbing people, these children that are out raping, torturing, doing things like that, and you look at, did their parents really do their best to prevent that? Did their parents teach them right or wrong? Did their parents, the moment they caught their children abusing a cat, a dog, a fly, a cockroach, did their parents do something about it? Usually you will find out that no, the parent did not do anything. The parent could have prevented these tragedies long ago, but the parent didn't do anything. So in these cases, I agree. I think we should bring back the guilt by relation uh, system. And if you have a child and you did not do your best to teach your child not to hurt people, then when your child hurt people, I think the parent should be punished. Agree with it or disagree with it? Leave it in the comment section. Thank you for checking out today's episode. We'll be back again tomorrow for Toy Thursday. For now, 谢谢 and 再见。